My landlord tried to sleep with my brother, but accidentally made us millionaires. My brother Gabe moved in with me 3 months after my divorce, sleeping on my couch in the cramped one-bedroom apartment I was renting in downtown Portland. He'd just gotten out of a bad relationship and needed somewhere cheap to crash while he got back on his feet. I told him it was temporary, maybe 2 months max, but we both knew he'd probably stay longer. My landlord Diana owned the whole building, a converted warehouse with 12 units that she'd bought in the 90s for basically nothing. She lived in the penthouse on the top floor and managed everything herself, collecting rent in person on the first of every month. She was 52, divorced twice, and had this way of standing too close when she talked to you that made conversations uncomfortable. The first time Diana met Gabe was on rent day in October. She knocked on my door at 9 a.m. like always, but this time Gabe answered in sweatpants and no shirt because I was already at work. When I got home that evening, he mentioned that the landlord had stayed for almost 30 minutes, asking him personal questions about his workout routine and whether he was seeing anyone. I laughed it off, told him Diana was just friendly. The next week, I came home to find Diana in my apartment. She claimed she'd knocked and the door was unlocked, that she needed to check the water heater, but the water heater was in the basement, not my unit. Gabe was on the couch working on his laptop, and Diana was sitting in my kitchen chair, her body language way too casual for someone who'd supposedly just stopped by on maintenance business. After she left, Gabe admitted this was the 3rd time she'd let herself in when I wasn't home. I told him to keep the door locked. Diana started finding excuses to be around. She'd coincidentally be checking the mail room when Gabe got home from the gym. She'd knock on the door asking if we needed anything fixed, even though nothing was broken. In November, she knocked at 10 p.m., claiming water was leaking from our unit into the apartment below, which was impossible since we were on the ground floor. Gabe answered, and she was wearing a silk robe with fuzzy slippers, asking if she could come in and check the bathroom. He let her in because what else could he do? And she spent 15 minutes examining pipes that were clearly fine, making comments about how handy Gabe looked and how she could use a strong man's help around the building. When I confronted her the next day about the late-night visit, she acted like I was being unreasonable, said she was just doing her job as a landlord, and maybe I was jealous of the attention she was giving Gabe. The situation escalated in December. Diana started leaving notes under our door. At first, they were about building maintenance, but then they got personal. One said she'd noticed Gabe seemed lonely and would love to take him to dinner to discuss a possible job opportunity managing some of her other properties. Another mentioned she was remodeling the penthouse and needed a man's opinion on furniture placement. Gabe wanted to move out, but affordable apartments were impossible to find, and he was still saving money from his new job. We decided to just avoid her as much as possible. Then on a Friday in January, Diana knocked during dinner with an eviction notice in her hand. She said we'd violated the lease by having an unauthorized long-term guest, and we had 30 days to leave. Gabe had never been added to the lease because Diana said it wasn't necessary for temporary visitors. I tried to reason with her, but she just smiled and said if Gabe wanted to discuss it privately, maybe they could work something out. That's when I got angry and told her we'd be contacting a lawyer. She laughed and said good luck, that she owned the building and could do whatever she wanted. I spent the weekend researching tenant rights and Portland housing laws, getting angrier the more I read. On Monday, I took our lease and all of Diana's notes to a tenant advocacy lawyer named Marcus Chen. I explained the whole situation, expecting him to tell me we were screwed. Instead, his eyes got wide when he looked at the lease. He asked when I'd signed it, and I told him 4 years ago. Marcus started pulling up property records on his computer, typing quickly, and then he just sat back in his chair and started laughing. He turned the monitor toward me and showed me something that made my hands shake. But what Marcus discovered about Diana and that building's legal status wasn't just grounds to fight the eviction. And that's when things took a turn I never expected. The rest of the story is on my channel or linked below.